And the adventure begins.
Come up, Yuri, come up. Oh, easy. We're trying to prepare these logs to be used, of course, in old-timey log cabin. Well, what we're doing is cutting the trees, measuring the logs. We're cutting 16-foot logs, and then we peel them immediately because we don't want the sap, I call it, to dry, and it will stick the bark to the log, and it's nearly impossible then to peel it. And so that's why we're peeling just as soon as we get them on the ground. And if another thing, if we don't get that bark off, the bugs will get in all that bark and ruin the logs.
These logs here, they look like they're all kind of the same size. How many is it going to take?
Yeah. Figure run about a 9 to 10 inch log for the wall logs, and by doing that we hope to gain about 12 inches on every round of logs.
Now, how many of these logs is it going to take you to?
Well, I figured on that basis it'd be in the neighborhood of 40, I would say, something like that. And then unfortunately we'll get some to the site and start looking at them, find out maybe they're not as straight as we thought they were, whatever.
Okay, that's the wall log, so.
Right. Now I might back up just a little bit and go back to the what we call the plates. We have to have two larger logs that are about we cut them, they're peeled out about 14 inches, and they'll be put down first on the pillars, I call them, that will stack up out of mountain stone. And then we'll have to take our sleepers, what I commonly call floor joists, to run across them to support the floor. And those logs will be smaller, something in the neighborhood of 7 inches. And then, as you were asking about, after we come up with the wall logs on top of that, by the way, we're going to put the floor down first after we get where we can, so we can stand on it and work off of it. And we get all the wall logs up, then we, of course, we'll have to put our ceiling joist logs, and then cut smaller ones for rafters, and that'll be the framework on the pillars. And then we'll put the floor, rough sawed pine, on top of that.
All right, and then the roof. Now, what do you've got the walls up, the floor in. What's next?
That's one of the most difficult things. We're going to have to cut some big oak trees, preferably red oak or black oak, and then they'll need to be in the neighborhood of 18 to 20 inches in diameter minimum. Cut them into about 18-inch blocks. I call it splitting it out. We'll half it, then quarter it. Keep on until it gets small enough so we can cut the shingles off of it. You need to cut your oak tree down, and while it's still green, block it out, and then start splitting it before it dries out.
Now, what do you mean by blocking it out?
Well, we'll cut it in about 18-inch lengths.
Cut it in the length you want your shingles
That's right.
to be.
And we figured we're going to use about an 18-inch shingle. And then you'll take that block out of the log and turn it up this way, and then you'll take hammer and wedges, split it in half, and then quarter it until you get it in small enough pieces that you can put it in a board break and start splitting off the shingles with a mallet and a froe.
Now, have you given any thought or calculated as how many shingles it's going to take, or is that something you're afraid to know?
Yeah. I don't like to think about it. It'll take in the neighborhood of 2,500 time that you do the roof and the gable ends. course, now that's going to include covering a porch on the front of this 16 by 16 cabin. Porch will run out about 10 feet on the front side.
A suitable site for the cabin has been chosen. The location of the cabin on the site has been laid out. 4 stone columns will be built to support the 4 corners of the cabin first. The first column will be built at the highest corner of the cabin site. The remaining 3 columns will be built to be level with that first highest one. After all 4 columns are completed, then the large plate logs are put down.
And you can see obviously from the sun coming up there this morning the way this cabin's going to be situated on this site, and the front porch will be coming out on this end here, so you'll be able to sit on the porch in the afternoon and watch the sun go down through the trees. The process we're involved in right now is cutting a notch here, or maybe 2 notches, to make sure that this log doesn't turn when all of these floorboards and floors and wall logs are put up on it. That's the footing for the chimney. These logs, since they're larger on one end than they are the other, as you might imagine, are not level. So that big 2x4 that you see stretched across those 2 plate logs there is used to place a level on. And then the leveling correction is made in the amount of notching that's done on these logs here that Grady is marking out there. Now is the big test to see if it's going to fit.
If you'll just scan down the length of this log, you'll see, surprise, surprise, it's not entirely straight. And that is why throughout this process there has to be adjustment after adjustment. It was suggested one day down here by a casual observer that it would be a lot easier if you just built a template. And of course that would work fine, except for one minor technicality, and that is that Mother Nature seldom ever grows 2 trees with the same curves and crooks and knots. This is the back of the cabin here, and you can see the foundation there for the fireplace. One thing that is constantly needed throughout the adventure of building this cabin is adjustments. And after those adjustments are made, more adjustments are needed. This is looking at the front, and you will note that there are no support columns here for the front porch. And there's a reason for that. If that were installed now, it would be very difficult to get some of these heavy logs and things that need to be put up there before the porch is built in place. Based on his prior experience, Mr. Partin has learned that these logs are very heavy. Therefore, since this power equipment was in the neighborhood, he is taking full advantage of it to get some of these heavier logs up there. This log that's being installed now will go all the way to the back and will eventually have a hole cut in it in the center there for the fireplace. Now he will go back and pick up the two logs that go on the front. They're already cut in two, the one that goes to the left of the door and the one that goes to the right of the door, so they don't have to be cut in the center. They will have to be cut on each end once the measurement for the door is determined. After these logs that have been lifted up there are installed, it will then be time to start putting the floor down. And obviously with a floor to walk on, it'll be a whole lot easier to start putting up the wall logs. This machine will leave shortly to start performing its primary responsibility. When that happens, these logs will have to be installed the old-fashioned way, that is, with brute force and a little bit of ingenuity from time to time. The first few levels of logs can just be rolled up two long poles. But as the walls get up higher, you'll see some more brute force and some ingenuity employed. And here's just a little preview of what that ingenuity looks like. Ropes are wrapped around the log on the ground that's to be pulled up. The end of each rope is secured to a log on the opposite side of the cabin. The rope is run under and over the top of the log you want to pull up. Then each man just pulls up his rope and gets the log to the top. Like most parts of this log cabin building process, that sounds a whole lot simpler than it is. Because these logs are not the same size on both ends, it takes quite a bit of maneuvering to get both ends to arrive at the top at the same time. The tedious process of making sure that these logs on either side of the door fit begins. Notching and shimming and shaving will eventually make these two logs on either side of the door fit like they're supposed to. We are almost ready to start putting down the floor. And that involves putting a level floor down on irregular floor joists, those that rise and fall like Mother Nature grew them. If you look at these rough sawn planks in this floor, you can see there are obvious cracks between them. A winter breeze blowing under the cabin in the wintertime could certainly come through those, make it a little chilly in there. Now that would be the case if you didn't put down a second floor on top of this, making sure that each of the boards in the second floor covered the cracks in the first floor, as was done on this floor. Here, as we look through the front door opening, you can see the two layers of floor. We are beginning to see some progress here. Now these were shot on different days at different times of the days, and there's no attempt to make them all look the same. The objective is for you to see the progress. These logs are getting just a little too high now to stand on the ground and push them up the poles. Solution?
We've taken this rope here, and the two ends of the rope on each side going over the wall, and they're anchored at each corner of the cabin on the other side for anchor points. Then we found the middle of the rope, and ran it, this end or middle of the rope, we ran it under the log and brought it over so that we create sort of two loops in there, so we can move the log by pulling at each side of the fold of the rope. And the people back then would have done this either like we're going to by hand, or if they were bigger logs, they would hitch a mule or a yoke of oxen over on the other side and roll them up like that. Almost like that before. Yeah, it's going to catch. Let's go. One more clip. That did it right there. Not like that.
Now that the highest of the wall logs are put up, Stan is putting the finishing touches on these pillars for the plate logs for the porch. Mr. Partin is standing here contemplating how in the world he's going to get this last wall log up there on top. And the reason for that concern is because this thing has to extend the length of the cabin and come out over the porch, and that'll be 30 feet.
When your material is not cut to size, you just sort of have to give and take of these joists until you get it weakened like you want it to be. And that's one reason it takes so much time. When we come to a place where there's a small swag, irregularity of some kind in shim up with a little piece like this piece of shingle here, or if we've got a hump, we'll just shave it off a little bit and keep our floor running quite level.
Porch joists are about ready to have the floor put down on them. Stan is stripping the bark off